Why do we need to secure our NestJS application with Keycloak? Why Keycloak? What is a Keycloak? Keycloak is an open source identity and access management. Why open source? Let's say you are developing your mobile application and you are considering to implement security. Most of the companies, they don't maintain security of their applications. If you choose Keycloak, the community is going to manage security for you. Check the Keycloak repository. Every day, the community is adding new features like two-factor authentication, passkeys, managing roles. All of these are covered in Keycloak. How users are being authenticated on your application. I'm going to walk you through step-by-step developing a NestJS application, integrating it with Keycloak, and you'll be the master of security like a pro. We are going to test using Bruno, an alternative to Postman. You can clone the project on my GitLab repository. We are going to use Swagger, integrating Swagger in our NestJS application, create users, assigning roles, updating users using Keycloak. You don't have to worry about security anymore. I will guide you step by step how to secure your application with NestJS. And you are going to use Keycloak as our authorization server. All APIs are secured. We just need to send a bearer token created in the Keycloak authorization server. And this Keycloak authorization server can be integrated with other applications which were developed in Spring, in Python, without to worry about any security on those other frameworks. Let's dive into NestJS with Keycloak integrations. So let's get started. You must have Docker installed in your computer, so make sure you have Docker installed so you can go on Google search and install Docker based on your operating system. For me, I already have a Docker installed and it's running on my computer. After you have a Docker installed, you can go to the link which is in description, which is on my GitLab URL code with Bisq, and you can go to this subgroup which is DevOps. In there, you get to Keycloak and clone this project or fork it. Once you fork it, then we want to you open the project and you have to run this. You can choose one that you prefer, MySQL or Postgres, and it has the Docker for MySQL. It will be installed in your project. So here I am using MySQL. You can choose to use Postgres. So after you have this, these are the configuration for Keycloak. So for Keycloak, my Keycloak is running on port 9082. Here I changed this port to configure to 9082. So you can change your port number here. And the image of the Keycloak version that I'm running is 25.00. And this is my password to log into my Keycloak. This is the web interface, my username and password, and the password that you are seeing here. And the database, I'm using MySQL since I configured MySQL here. And I'm telling it the username and password of my database. And here, this is the URL. You can put this URL. This is the URL for MySQL database. You can see it's running for port 3306, which is this one. Then this is the URL. So once this is running, you are okay. And the command that we can run is let me open terminal. So you can go to your project where it is located and you can run the file name, this docker compose -f, the name of the file, which is MySQL docker compose.yaml. Then we just say up. So if you run this command, it will run your Docker it will run the Docker image for Keycloak on your local, and the Keycloak will be running fine. So once the Keycloak is running, you can log into the Keycloak with the name of the local host, the port that you configured. Mine is 9082, and you can log in. So after logging in, we want to create a new room. So by default on yours, the rooms here, it will be empty. So we can create a new room, and I can call this NestJS tutorial. This is the name of my new room. It's called NestJS tutorial, and I'll click create. Once we have a room created, we are now okay. What we can do now, we need to create a client. These are the steps that we need to set up for the first time. We can create a client, you can go to client, and we want to create a new client that we can call it NestJS app admin. It's okay, and we can click next. This is the app admin that is going to manage creating of users, deleting of users, assigning roles, and we are going to use this client. Then here we can enable authentication, and we can enable account service roles. This will manage our Keycloak roles like room admin, room user. So we need to enable this, and we need to enable credentials. Then you click next. For redirect, you can visit this later. For now, just click save. Once it is like this, we are now okay. We are now have our client. So we have to first create a room, and then create a client that we are going to use. And this client is just for managing the administration, which is in backend. And this client must be saved and it must be secure within your backend. In our NestJS, we must not expose it to the front end, because these credentials are very important and users must not be able to have access. So this is the secret that we are going to use later. So we need now to create another client that we are going to use just for logging in, that we give to our mobile application or a web application. This client is just for logging in, username and password, and I can call this one app client, and I can click next. I can enable authentication. It's okay, let me enable authentication, but this client must not manage any user. So it's one of the weakest client that you are going to create, and it's just for application to be able to create JWT tokens, and you can click save. Once we are done with this, we are now okay. So the next step, we have these clients, right? And what we need to do, we can create users here in here. We can create users in our Keycloak in this dashboard. So I can create a user, and this user I can call it bisc@gmail.com, and email, I just copy the same email. First name, I can say bisc. And I can just say create. Here I've managed to create a user into Keycloak, but we need to do this through an API, whereby we are in our NestJS, we have to create this via a REST API. We can create credentials for this user, set password, and I can call this test it 1 2 3 4, test it 1 2 3 4, and for temporary I'll just say false. This is my password, and I can save this password, save password. So we need now to test this. What I did, I have Bruno. If you are not familiar with Bruno, you can use Postman, but I have Bruno API that I can use to test my my REST APIs to Keycloak and to whatever. So what I can do here, I can come here. We have Bruno installed. So in my Bruno, I already have the APIs that I created so that we can fast track the progress of our application development. So I won't go through copying these APIs for Keycloak and come entering the APIs as they are. I already tested this. So what I can do now, I have this Bruno. You can download the collection. You can see it in the description. So you must have Bruno installed in your computer. So you just go to Bruno, download the Bruno, use Bruno, and you can install it in your computer. Once you have Bruno installed, you can see how you can import this. You can clone the project. This project that I created, you can clone it. I have pushed these APIs. You can clone them, import as a collection. After, you can then create import collection, and you can open that project. You can click open collection, and you can navigate to where the project that you have cloned, and you can have access to this. So what we can do now, I already in this collection, if I go to, I have this one, which is password login. And in this password login, we need to change something from this Bruno, because I'm using, we created a new realm and we created a new client. So what I can do, you can come to my configure in my local, you can configure this, and the base URL. Okay, for the Keycloak, let's look for your Keycloak, we need to put this base URL. And this one, this is the client ID for the application that is interface facing. So this, let's update, let's go to Keycloak and update these details. So if I go to clients and I go to Nest App Client, let's open App Client. This is my App Client ID, and I'll come to my Bruno, and I'll just change this to here, and I'll come back. I want to take the password that was created here. I can copy the password and put it in my Bruno. This is the secret. Right, and the realm is no longer NestJS. I told you the realm is now NestJS tutorial. So let's update this tutorial, and let's update the admin client ID also. So we have the admin client ID that we created, the first client that we created, which is this one, NestJS app. This is the admin client, and we can copy the credentials. Let's go to the Bruno, because it's NestJS, and we need to copy this one. And we have the UUID that we can copy. Also, we can use this letter, which is this one. We can copy this client ID and we can put it in our configuration. These are just configurations. And for this user ID, we will update them later on. For now, we are okay. this one I can remove this. Yeah, now I can save. So these are the configuration that we put. So for us to log in, we have the Keycloak, which is HTTP localhost 9082, and here we need to specify the rooms, and we created a room called NestJS tutorial and the protocol and this. And then in our body, we created a user which is called BISC, and we created the password. It was test1234, and the grant type is password. And let's try to log in. After logging in, we got the token. This is the token for this user that we created manually. So if I come here and say jwt.io, and I will paste this, you can see this is the user that we created manually, and the email and all the details. So what you want to do now, we need to create these ones through REST API of Keycloak admin client. If I go to the Keycloak admin client, Keycloak has exposed these APIs to us that we can use so that we don't code, we code them, we can code this API. This is the name of this is the URL for admin. So ours is 9082 admin rooms, and we can now update with the action that you want to perform. So if you want to create a user, we need to have this API for users. Here it's count the users. I already have these APIs that I'm going to use for this tutorial. So what we need to do, let me open my Bruno. In my Bruno, if I go to the user admin, you can go to this admin, and if I go to the admin, I have this API that I already created, which is the one that we are used to create a user to Keycloak. So this is the URL, our base URL of Keycloak 9082, and here the name of our room NestJS. And here, remember, you start with the admin, that rooms, then you want to create a user, and the name, the method is post. And these are the details. These are the few details that we need when creating a user. So here I can change this to BISC2, and I can change this one to BISC2. I don't want to change the username and password, and for the I don't want to change the password. It's going to be test1234. Then I can send a request. So what I need to do, this thing requires a client, the client that we created. So if I go to the auth in admin, I have this client. Let me go to the body. I have this client, which is the NestJS app admin, and the password that we created. So this is the one responsible for that. And here the grant type is credential, client credentials. If I send this, it will save this access token in our session. So if I go to this script, you can see this from the response body access token is being saved into the admin token. So if I go here and go to this in the before script, I'm taking this from the variables, which is admin token, and I can send a request. Now the problem is that it's 403. Our admin client is not required to create a user. Let's go and fix that. If we go to clients, app admin, you have to go to the service accounts row in here, and from here I need to create, let assign a row, and this one, let's just say admin, because I want to give everything, because this one is going to manage everything and will be only accessed into our backend. So don't expose the client credential for this admin anyway in your front end. So what I can do now, let's go back to Bruno, and you have to log in again so that we can get the correct rows here. And let's create a user for this one now. You can see we got 201, means a new account has been created. This has been done through the REST API. So let's go to Keycloak and see if we are able to see this user. This user is here, biscuit2@gmail.com. And the email, reason of seeing this red, because the email is not yet verified. We need to send a verification email. In the future, later on, few minutes on, we are going to create the configure our email. Here we are going to configure the email so that once you create a user, an email will be sent to that user for email verification. So now let's now go and create our NestJS application. So for NestJS, it's a Node.js framework that is it has a good architecture as compared to other frameworks of Node.js out there, and it's something that is rising very fast, and the community is growing big each and every day. That's why I decided to create this tutorial for you. So what we need to do now, let's go to the documentation. So in the documentation, make sure you have NestJS installed in your computer. I can do this, and I can, you must have NestJS client installed in your computer, and you must have Node installed in your computer. Now I can run this, and here choose npm like this. I want to use npm. Let's wait for it to complete the installation. Okay, -a. We now have this project installed here. So what I can do, I will open the project using a WebStorm. Okay, now I have my project here, and let's look into the package JSON. You can see we are using NestJS. And to run this project, it's simple. What you need to do is just to run this. Let's run this dev. And it's running on port. If you go to main, it's running on port 3000. If I come here, we can get something like a localhost, and it's running on this port. Hello world. So we have the project, our NestJS, up and running in seconds. So what we can do now, we need to have Axios installed. So the Axios is the library that we are going to use to code these REST APIs for Keycloak. So let's install Axios. So here we can go to let's go to HTTP modules of techniques, and here let's install Axios. Let's copy this and install this dependence. And in my terminal, I will just do this, and I need to install this Axios. If I go to my package JSON, you can see the Axios dependence has been added here. Let me just add this into, let's add this into Git here, okay? So we have Axios installed. For the Axios to be used, let's look, we need to configure it into our module. If I go to app module, and if I import this, if I paste this, we need to import this one. And if I save this, if I go to run, let me just fix this. Okay, no issues, everything is okay. The dependence of Axios is added, and we added the module. So it means we are able to use this access library to call our application. So what I want to do in my route, I want to add some environment so that we can start to use environments. So just say .env. I want to add these configurations like the client, the admin client ID, admin client secret. So I need to add this file, which is, so here I need to add it into Git. I want to add this variable into our Git. Although when you don't need to add it into Git, but for me, for your reference, for you to be able to use this application, I'll just put everything into Git. So I have these configurations on my project, which I was using for preparing this tutorial. So I need to copy these variables. So for the Keycloak, we have running on port 9082. For the realm, I told you is tutorial. So I'll copy this name and put it here. So this is the URL that you are going to use to log in as a client. And for the client ID, we have the client ID that we are using here. We can copy it from our configurations, admin client ID. This is the one that we are interested on. And I can copy. And the secret, we can copy also this for the admin secret, which ends with 21. And I can come and I can paste it here. This is the expiry token of the link if you want to reset. And here, client facing is no longer that one. We can go to Bruno. For the client facing, we can use this one, which is the one that is configured there, app client. And let's take the client facing credentials also that we configured previously, which is this one. This is for the client. So we are okay. We can put these ones here. For this database, we don't need these configurations. We are not connecting to any database. Even for this one, it's okay. We don't need this. We don't need to configure this port. So what we can do now, we are now okay. We have these configurations that we created when we create our realm and our clients. That's the most important configurations. The admin client credentials and ID, and the client credentials and ID. Although this one are for the facing, for the Keycloak client facing, like the web application, your Angular, your React, or a mobile application, I can remove them. Since we don't need them here, I can remove them also here. So what we can do now, we need to add some configurations here. So here in NestJS, we need to add, since we are using environment file, that one, we need to configure those environments. So what I can do, I can do this. I have added the dependence for the application to be able to read this in .environment. So after doing this, I think we are okay. We need to configure this module. It will be able to load these credentials. So what I can do, let's come to the application and let's go to the main, to the app module. And you can import this. So we have configured our configuration. So we need to add some configurations here. So this configuration, let me copy from my previous. So it's going, we need to create in source, we need to create a new config here, a folder called config, and I need to place this here, and I can add this into my Git. So after adding this, we are okay for the database. This way for the database, I'm not using database, I'm not using the port. Let me remove this. So we need our realm. We just put a default. These are not necessary. It will load from this environment variables. These are the variables that we want that are going to be loaded. And for the client facing, I'm not using them. I can also delete because I did not configure them. Also here I can remove. What I'm more interested in is the admin client ID. Admin client and the Keycloak, which have our realm, our login URL, which is going to be this one that we configured here, which is Keycloak login URL, which is this one. So these are the configurations. After doing this, we need to add those configurations. So if you let's go to the app module, and in the for root here, we need now to say load this from is global mail. Make sure it's true so that when you are using Docker to configure these ones, there will be no issue. Let me just fix the current file. So this is global is true. Make sure if you are now using Docker, you can pass these variables from your Docker environment variables. That's why I made this one global to true. So after doing this, and these are the configurations that we put here, they are being loaded here. So we are okay. If you try to run our application, it is restarting and everything is okay. No errors since we added these dependencies and these configurations. So what we need to do now, we need to create a new, let me create a new folder here. I can call this one Keycloak. So from this Keycloak, I want to create a service, and I can call it Keycloak service. So this one is responsible for calling our Keycloak APIs. So I can come here and I just say always add into Git. And here we are using, remember, we are using the latest, we are using this one, Node.js was inspired by Angular. So for this service to be loaded into our dependency injection, just put it inject. We have to put this at injectable. So we need now to add the configurations for admin client URL, like what we did here. We need now to configure. We want to create a new user first, and we need to configure this URL here, and we need to configure the realms. We need to know which realm are we going to use. So for this one, I just want to add these configurations. Let me copy. I already have this one. So here let's add this config service and the HTTP service, which we are going to use to call our APIs. So for this one, we are okay. So we are now reading this admin URL from our configurations. That's why we added these configs. We are now reading them. If you see Keycloak admin and base URL, these are the configs that are here, which is the base URL. So here we are just reading the variables. So we are taking them from the environment variables. So once we are done here, we need to create a user. So for creating a user, let's create in here, I want to create a new directory, and I can call it GTO, because these ones are just for Keycloak. I don't want to confuse to confuse with the other that I'm going to use when creating when exposing our REST APIs. So here I can create the one that I can call user representation. Let's go to it's a TypeScript file, and I can call this one user representation. Then I just say export class user representation. So from our, let's look from our Bruno. If you are creating a user, we only have these few details. So let's just copy them, and I will come. So usually what I do, I just look for something that is online, say JSON to TypeScript. Usually this is what I do. I just put this here, and we can get these details. So I just need these details only, and I can paste here. So let's create the ones for credentials. Here I just want to say class. I'm from Java background, I prefer classes. So we have now user representation, and we have the credentials which you are going to set. So by doing this, we now have the models to create a user. So what we can do now, so from our front end, we just want to pass few details. And these details here, I just say directory, I can just say model. So here I just create a new TypeScript file, and I can call it new user, and I can export class new user, and this user can have these details: username, password, last name. I think only few details here: username, first name, last name, and the password. So these are the details that I want to pass from my front end, either Angular, mobile app. So I don't have to expose the whole. I don't have to expose the whole this to my front end users. It's not good. So I think after doing this, we are okay. Let's go to our service, and let's create a method called create user. And here we are going to create, I can say new user, and of type new, this one, and I will make it promise, and it will not return anything, right? And so from here, what I can do now, we need to convert this new user to this user representation that is being supported by Keycloak. So what I can do now, I can just say, let me put it in a try catch, because an exception can be thrown, right? And I can just say let user equals to new this one, and then let's map these details like user dot last name equals to new user dot last name, and duplicate first name, username. Here we have email. So for us, my email is going to be my username, so it's okay. What I'm going to put as a username is my email. Then we need this one, which is credential. So what I can do, I can just say let credential equals to new credential. Then I can say credential type equals to, because we want to create the type is password. This is required by Keycloak. Credential dot temporary equals to false. We don't need to reset it after installation. Then the value is equals to the one that is coming from our request from new user dot password. Then here we need to set the credentials for this. Dot credentials. Then we can pass our credential. So here for the year we just say catch error if we have any error. So let me make it error, and I can just say console.log. I can log this error, or I can say I can throw this error, throw new error, and just say failed to create a user, and I can put, okay, since I'm using, okay, I can do this plus error dot message. Here we need to set user.enabled. Let's make it to true. And user.email verified equals to false, because we haven't verified by our email. So in accesses, there's a method called first value from. Let's say first value from, and we need to pass our HTTP service. So what I can do, I can just say HTTP service dot post, and we want to post our URL, our request which we created. So I can just say $ like this, and it's going to be Keycloak, this .keycloak admin URL, and we want to send it to the user's path, and we want to post this user that we have created. So from here we need to pass this user, which is here. Here we put a user, and here we put some headers. What we can do, these are now headers, so we need to specify like headers here, and it's of type this one, and we can say authorization like this one from Axios, and the bearer, and here we just say bearer, and we can pass our token that we get from here. So for the first thing, we need to create a token. So this token is our bearer token. If you come here, you see we first created our token, which is this one that we are using to send our requests, and this token must have the rights and permissions to create a user. So we need to come back here and create this token. So maybe before we do this, we just say let like this token equals to, so I can remove this $, get admin token. So let me create this token for you. So this is what we are going to do here. I can paste this code. So here we are passing in the form data, we are passing the client ID, client secret and grant type, which is client credentials, and we are passing the admin client ID and admin client secret to this URL, which is for logging in, that we configured in our environment variables. So here we need here to just say await. So if we put await, our method must change to async like this, and we can change this, and this is the token that we want to use when creating this one. We can do this. So this is the bearer token that we are going to have, and if I do this, I just say await, and we'll be waiting for the response. If we don't have any error, it means a new user has been created. So let's test, let's see if we don't have any errors now. Let's remove this public and we can do this. Let's make this async like this and save this. So everything is now okay in our URL. So by now we are able to create a new user with this API. So what we need to do now is to create the REST API, the add controller, and we can pass these details to our backend, and a new user will be created. So here I can create a new package. I can call this one controller, or I can call it API, and I can create a new TypeScript file, and I can call it user API, and I can export a class called user API. And from this, I can mark this one as add controller. And I can mark it as it's going to be a user. And let's create a method. And this one is going to be, I think, a void. So what I can do, it's going to be add post. Then it's create new user, and it requires, and here we can call it body. Don't forget to add this parenthesis, and you just say new user of type new user, and it's going to be a promise like this one, and it's a void. Let me make this async, right, because I want to wait for something here. And in my constructor, let me just add a constructor here, and I want to add this Keycloak service. I'll just say private read only. Service. And here I'll just say await. I will create a new user, which is this one. So I have exposed this API, and this is the API that we are going to use when creating a new user. So if I hit the endpoint with this user and the API, I'm just sending these these four fields, which is password, last name, first name, and username, and the user will be created. So what I want to do now, let's just add this dependency. It's funny. Let's do this together. We want to, let's go to the open API, and let's go to the introduction. We want to add this Swagger. I will copy this one, and I'll come to my terminal. We want to add Swagger. Okay, Swagger has been added. Let's add it into our module, the configurations. Okay, I will copy this one. Let's add this into our main.ts file just below the listen, and I can come here just below in the main, below the listen here. I want to add this one, and let's import again. I don't think I need this one, and I can say Keycloak integration, the Keycloak API integration. Yeah. Now let's look for the URL that we can use to access. We need to code this one, and here it was just for a hello world. So let's do this. We can see we can have this. So far we do not add our controller. Let's add our controller into the providers. So our controller is not yet appearing here because we did not add it. So this is the, let's go to our controller that we created, our user API, this one, and we can add it into our app modules, and we have the section for controllers, and we can do this, and we can, it's okay if I run this. Okay, the Keycloak service must also be imported. Let's import it here, and I can import this here, and I can save. If I come here and reload this page, we are now have this API which is here to create a new user. So if I try out, I can just put these details, only few details, the username, last name, and password, and the first name. So what I can do here, I'll just say first name, or I can copy this from our Bruno. I have username, last name, here for email, I'll just say password, and my password is the same, tested1234. And this is the username. I will change this to biscuit3. since we already created 2 users, I'm now creating, so far if you go to Keycloak, if I go to users, we only have 2 users, Bisky and Bisky 2. So we need to create another one. So let's test our request. Here, this is the issue. We are supposed to remove this comma, and let's send our request again. And we get 201. It means a new user has been created. Let's see by reloading this. You can see we have this new user Bisky3, which has been created through our REST API. This is how you can create a user in a Keycloak in our NestJS project. So the next thing is on updating this user. The implementation is going to be the simple. Let's say we want to update the first name and last name, because you don't want to change the username or the email. Once we create with those details, we want to use them permanently. So let's say we want to update the username and the first name and last name to our Keycloak. So we need to create a new model here. Let's create another one, TypeScript file, and just say update user. So from this update user, I will just want to copy this one, and we can update the, what you want to update is the first name and the last name. So this is the, so let's now go to our Keycloak service. In our Keycloak service, what we need to do, we need, here it was create. I want to duplicate this create. I want to duplicate this method, and I'll just say update. What I want to update is this one, update user. In my update user, the token I need it, but I want to remove everything like these ones. And here I will just want to update this. And for the update, it requires a user ID. So I just say user ID, and this of type string, and here I will just do this and do this, and I can update. We want to update this user, and here it's no longer a post, it's supposed to be a put mapping. So let me reformat. So we have reformatted our code. This is the update user. I just want to update these details and just passing the user ID, and it's a put. If you go to Bruno, you can see the update URL. I'm just passing the only details that I want to update, and it requires a user ID. So what I can do now, let's create an API for this one. So we already created an API for creating a user. Let's create another one for update. For update, it's going to be easier also. Here it's going to be put, right? And here it's going to be update user. It's update user, and our method is update user. Shift F6, I just say update user 1, and I want to import this, and in here it requires a user ID. So what I can do, I can just say / a full colon ID, and I can say it param I'll just say add param. Here I will say ID and string ID. Of type string. And here let's look, is it second parameter? Yes, it's second parameter. Then I'll just say user ID. Here it's supposed to be it allows single quotes. So this is the update of this is the update API. So if I do this, let me save this and let me reload. You can see this is we created it. Let's open this third user, which is this one, and the ID is this one. So this is the ID that you want to update. In the first name it's small letter bisc, and the last name it's Misuid. So let's reload our API so that we can get the put this one. So let's try out. I want to put this ID, and from my Bruno I just want to copy these details, and I'll come back here and I will paste them here. Sorry, from my Bruno, let me copy these and let me paste here. It's going to be bisc 12 and Misuit 11. So let's test our API and I will create this. We get a 200 again. Let's look in our Keycloak if everything is okay. You can see we have updated our user and everything is okay. We managed to create a user. We managed to update a user. So what we can do now, let's complete something in our user. When creating a new user, let's go to Keycloak. When you create a new user, remember, when you create a new user here, the email verified is false. We need to send a verification email after doing this. So after we create this, we need to send a verification email to this user. Then after sending a verification email, that's when a user have to receive this email. So below here, we need to send a verification email to this user. So what I can do now is I need to, let's say, send verification email. And I want to pass this user. I just say this, I want to create this method, and I just say await. And let's create this method below. And let's remove this private. Okay. Email, let's make this to email. So just after creating, for us to send a verification email, we need to know the user ID. So the endpoint for this one, it's simple. Let's go to Bruno and click, and I will share with you verification email. The endpoint, it's simple. It requires a redirect URI and it requires a user ID. So then these are the details that we want. But for after creating, you see, after creating a user, we did not get a user ID. We need to retrieve a user ID. So here we need to get this user that we just created. And here I just want to say token instead of type string. I know we are going to have an error, but the token here, we already have the token that which was generated before, and we can pass this token here, and we need this So we need a get method. So what we are doing here, we need this get method. What I can do, I can copy this one. We need a get method to get this user. So what I can do, I can just say get, and from the Keycloak URL, we need a URL from the admin, which is this one. I'll just say $admin URL, Keycloak admin URL, and we need to pass our, let's go to Bruno. We need users and verify email. This is the endpoint that we want. Okay, let's come back here. Here on user ID, we need to find, here we need the user ID here. So let's just say here user ID. Let user ID is equals to this one. We implement this one very soon. $. And here we need to pass some URL. So for the get, it does not have this. And for the headers, I copied the wrong headers. I need these headers. For headers, these ones. So here I'll just say let this one, it's going to be the for send verification, we are going to do this, but this one can be, we can have an error, but if an error occurs on sending verification, it doesn't matter. We can just do this, and we can put this in a try catch. And here we can catch this, and we can console.log.error. So for send verification, this is we are not worried about the response, because there's nothing that you want to do with the response. So what I want to do now, we need to first get this ID, this user ID. So I just want to create a method called getUser. This dot get user by username. And to get this user by username, and I want to pass this user, and I want to pass the token, and it's going to be await. And from this user, I just want to copy everything that is in here, and I want to copy to put them here. And I can create this method here, and I can paste this method. And for the promise, it's going to be the user representation. So after await, I will have to return response.data. Here I think here it's going to be an array, because we want to fetch a record. So what I want to do, from here. So for searching here, we need our query. We want to fetch a user, so it's not a verified email. So what I can do is like something like this. Let's go to our Bruno and find a way where we are searching a user. Get user by username. It requires first max username and exact supposed to be true. So what I need to do is just need to copy. Let me paste this. The username, it's going to be dot username. We want to pass this, and here we put a comma and we just say $. So here we are going to get the list of users, and from getting the list of users, we want to get the user that we just created. So here, if you send the email, the username is biscuit2@gmail.com. We want to get the exact value, and the maximum value, the maximum number is 1, because we only have one username to one account. Then if we do this, we are okay. And let me fix this file. And I want to remove this private. So after just creating a new user, we are expecting to have this user ID. So here I just say users, and I will say let user ID equals to users at position 0. Let me remove this. For send verification, we don't need this question mark. I think we are okay. So when creating a new user, we need to send this send verification email. So for sending verification email, we need to first find the user by username, and if you get this user, we then if we get this user, we can get the user ID. So I can do this. Here I can just say ID. From user representation, I think I need to put the ID. Yeah. So let's test creating a new user again with the let's try out. I want to copy this from Bruno, create user. Here I'll just say password. Test 8 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4, and here I'll put a valid email address, code with pisk@gmail.com. Then the first name and last name I can say pisk. So the problem that we are going to have here, we are not yet configured the email to our Keycloak. So we are going to have an error if we are trying to send a verification email. So what we need to do is to come to REAM settings. Let's configure the email. And we can go to here from, you can, for me, I'm using Zoho as my email provider. So I can just say no reply. So this is my email that I'm using. So you can use your Google, find your provider that you are preferred. So for me, I'm using Zoho SMTP, and you can choose 582 stateless, enable authentication, and here it's no reply. And here I need to put my password. So I put my password and I can test connection. So you can see an email has been sent. It means I have managed to configure my email correctly, and I can click save. So right now I need now to test to create a new account, and an email verification must be sent. So let me click this execute, and I go to 01. So let's check if you have any error. We have an error when I was trying to send. The problem is that when I send a verification email, it's a put method. So I think that's the issue. So let me go to the send verification. Here it's supposed to be a put method. So in our send verification email, the issue is that we did not provide a client ID and redirect URI. These are required when sending this request. So what we need to do is to come back here, and we need to put a question mark here, and like what we do on getting this user, let's copy the query params, these ones, and we need to configure these query params also here. And here you just say params $, to string. Then these params, it's going to be two. It's one for the redirect URI and the other one's for client ID. So what I can do, it's client ID, and here it's going to be the admin. I think with client ID, this client ID. Let's see for the redirect URI. Redirect URI is supposed to be localhost 4200. So let me go here, and I just want to copy. If we have a redirect URI, this one, which is redirect URI from our configuration. So from our configurations, let's look in our environment, our redirect URI. It's going to be localhost, this one. It's localhost HTTP 4200 by default if I do not find it. So let's go to our Keycloak and go to the clients. Let's go to the clients, which is the admin, this one. So in our redirect URI, we need to configure this redirect URI here, and we need to save. Now we can send a verification email. Click execute. No errors has been shown. Let's look here. We don't have any error. So if you don't have any error, let's look for the message into our Gmail, and the verification email has been sent. This is the email. So if you click this email, and you can click proceed to verify, and you can go back, it's route to the correct URL. If we refresh here, you can see the email has been verified, and there is no that red like the above ones. So this is how you can verify your email, and we have managed to complete the registration of this user. So let's go back to our application. Since now you are able to create this user and updating the user, it's now okay. We can now send verification email. So what I want to do is just to show you how you can assign roles to a user. To assign a role to a user, I think it's very simple also. Let's go to our Bruno and see how we can assign roles. So before we go to our Bruno, let's go to Keycloak, and you can see all our users, they don't have any row. So we need to have something here like rows. So we can create a row. These are called dream rows. I can create the one called, or I can call it this one, it's a member. For everyone must be a member on the application. Every user or anyone is just a member. So if I go to rows, we can now have this member. So if you go to users, let me take a look of this one. You can assign a row by coming here, and you can click here. You can filter by rows, and you can assign this row to this user. But we need to do this in our API. So what we need to do is to get the list of rows that to get the row name first. Then after getting the row name, we can assign to a user. So if in our Bruno we have a section for row, we can get the row by name, this one. So I can get this the number of rows. Let me just, so for the client login, let me log in, and I want to get these rows. I want to get this row by admin, or the row. We created a new row called member. So this is how you can get the row. You can get the row. So if you want to assign a row, we need to get the row by the name. And if the row exists, we can now assign it to a user. So what we can do now, we need an API, a get method to get this row by a name. So we can come to our web store. Since we have this one, let's just copy. And then here's a get row by name, and here you can pass the token, and here we can say the row name, the name of a row. Here it's supposed to be a string, and here you just put a name. So here we don't need these query parameters because they are not query parameters, they are path variables. And here it's supposed to be, let's go to our API and look for the rows and the name, rooms, the real name, and the, so here it's going to be here, and we put name. And in our response, we can see when I tested with the room, let's copy. We need to create this. Yeah, this is the row that we need, and I can just say row representation, and I can come back here. So here we can create a new file, go to TypeScript, and I can call row representation. And I can paste these fields. For attributes, let me remove them. I can copy this row representation, and I can go back to my Keycloak service. Here it's returning a one row, and I can fix this file. So after doing this, after I get this row by name, I need now to assign a row to a user. So since it's going to be, so let me go, so this is okay. Now I will just say assign row, I'll create another method called async assign user row. So what I need is the user ID, comma, the row name is string, comma, I need also the token, or the token I can ignore it here, and the promise, it's going to be a void here, it's okay. So what I can do, let me just copy it. I think it's a put to assign a user row. This one, this is the method, and it requires, it's a post method, and you pass a user, and in the body you put a list of rows that you want to assign. So what I want to do now is I just want to do async. I just want to get this token first. Let me get the token. Let me get the token. After getting the token, I can get the row. This dot get the row, and from the row I want to put the row name, which is this one, row name, and a token. And from the token it's going to be await, and it's going to return the row representation. It's going to be like this. So after doing this, it's okay. We can now call our method, our put method. Let me call the put method. Let me look somewhere I call the put method. This is our put method. Let me just copy first the value from the URL, the body, and the token, the header. So here it's going to be our put method, but here we need realms, we need this. So what I want to do is to come here. We already have the user ID. So if you have the user ID, you just call realm mappings, and we want to assign to this row to the realm section. Something like this. So if you have this in our body, it's going to be simple. We can just say rows is equal to, and we can pass this row that we want to assign. So it's going to be a list. That's why I put this, and our body is just saying we are sending this list, because if we are go to Bruno, our body is a list of rows. So if I do this, I'm okay, and I can let's fix this, the current file. So here, this is how you can assign a row to a user. So what we can do now, let's create an API into the, here it was user API. I want to create a new one, which is called rows. Row API, and here I can say called rows. And from the rows, and I can, this one is just to get the list of rows. I can leave it like this for now. So let me come back to these rows, and I can just say it's going to be updating. Here it's going to be the user API. I then say assign row. So in my URL, I'll just say assign row. Then here, and I'll pass a row name. What I can do this, and I can put the row name that I want to assign. I can say the row, and here I just say row, and it's no longer this one, and assign row, and I put the user ID. It's a user ID and a row name. And I can fix the current file to have single quotes. So this is our API to assign a row. So if I assign, I must know the row that I'm going to assign. And from this row, I'm putting the user ID that I want to assign and the row name. We need to find the row first from our list of rows. So I think we are okay, and we can run the application. And let's reload this. So what I want to do first is to come to the list of users. This code with BISC, if I go to row, it does not have any row or that we created the member. So I want to copy this, and I'll come to my Swagger. So if I go to this here, which is assign row, and you can try it out, and I'll put the user ID, and here I'll put a member. So to assign a row, it's easier. What I can do now is click execute. Let's look for the error, why we're having an error. And I think it's the name of our method, get. So our method, it's a post, not a put. So what you can do is to come back here and change where you put post, put and put post. And we need to test again. And then let's execute this. We get a 200, and it means it's successful. Let's go to the row mappings and let's refresh this. You can see a new row has been added. So this is how you can assign a row to a user. So to disassign, it's just the same method, and you put the row. You have to find the row that you want to disassign, and it's going to be a delete mapping. So what you can do is we can copy what we did here. Remove user row, and from here we are going to change this to delete. So the delete does not have a body. So what you can do, I can copy this and I can remove this, and here in my config I can say data, and I can put these rows like this, and we have put this into our delete. This is our access is if your method does not have a row. So what I can do, I can fix the current file. So now since we can remove a row, let's create a method for that, the API, and we want to remove the row name here with remove user row, and here it's going to be a delete, and we can save this. So what I want to do is to come back to our Swagger. I want to copy this user ID and reload, and this is our delete, and I can try out, and we want to remove the member that we just created, and I can click this one, and we got 200. Let me refresh here. The row have been deleted. this is how you can delete a row. We have managed to delete the row. So by now you have understand all the basics for Keycloak, how to assign rows, how to delete, create users. So what I want to do now, I want to show you how to secure our APIs, which API with Keycloak, so that it's an authorization safer. Because of OpenID, you can see we can access these bearer tokens even we do not have a token. Means someone outside the network can manage to do this by accessing these APIs. So we need a way to expose, to secure these endpoints. Like create user must be public and must be accessed without unsecured, but all others must be secured. So we have this library which is called Keycloak Connect. So what we can do, we can add this dependence. After adding this dependency, we can copy this and register it as a module. So what you can do, I can copy this. Let me copy this and let's go to our app module. Let's go to our app module just below here. Let's add this. So I can remove these ones, it doesn't matter. So here I want to, for simplicity's sake, I just want 90. Let's look in our environment variables. It's 9082 and our secret is this one. $90.82, and we can put our secret as this one, and we can copy our client ID, admin client. I can put this. Or let me put the details of the client. Let me put the details. So we can delete this. And the name of our room is going to be here. Here it's 9082. And we need the client ID and client secret. So let me go to Keycloak. I want to go to the clients and I want this one that I'm using as app client, and the credentials for this, it's going to be app client, and I can secure this. And let me fix this. So by doing this, we have secured our application. So after adding these configs, we need to add more for the to configure that the application must be authorized, or APIs must be authorized. To do that, we can come back to our open in here, and we have to come to in the providers. We need to put this into the providers. So let's go to the providers of our application. Just below Keycloak service here, let's add these providers. Then let's reload our application. So what we have done now, we have configured our application that to use an auth guard, means it's now using Keycloak as an authorization server. So the token, you must be authenticated with Keycloak for you to be able to access these APIs. So if I go here and I can click any method, like, let me reload this. Let me just call this endpoint and try out, which was returning a hello world. You can see I'm not authorized. I need to pass a bearer token. So to pass a bearer token, it means I must be authorized to access this API. So here in our OpenAI, we have if we are authenticated, we need to add a configuration. Let's look for that configuration. So let's add this annotation in our user. In our user API, we need to add this annotation to tell that we are using this request we can access with the bearer token. So our Swagger will be able to provide us a key to input our bearer token. So there's an API which is here, this one for hello world. Let's also add it here, and we can save this. So here we have an issue with this key. If I click it, it's not working. Let's now go to our, I think it's our main. Yeah, into here, we need to add this configuration, and we need to reload so that it will allow bearer auth. So if I reload here and click this key, we need to put our bearer token. So I need to log in with the user, that one of the user that I created. So if I go to the, let me go here to the user login. Let me try if this user exists. Yes, it exists. So I can copy this token, and I can come to Swagger and I can paste the token from here, and I can authorize. I click close. Then I can execute this endpoint. If I try out and click execute, I can get a hello world because I'm now authenticated with the Keycloak, and this token is valid for authentication. So if I click this and say log out, if try to execute again 401, I'm not authorized. So we have these endpoints such as create user, and this endpoint, if I try out, I'll get 401. For this endpoint to work, because we must be able to create a user if we are not yet authorized. We just need to come to our API. Let's go to our API, which is user. So for the API that you want to be accessed without, we just say it unprotected, something like this, and we can save this. So if I try to access this now, I won't get 401, I'm getting 500 because now I'm able to access the API. So this is how you can activate if your API is protected, you want it to be accessed publicly. But these ones, you can't access them because if I try out and do this and execute, I'm getting 401 because they are still secure. You have to provide a bearer token. This is how to master Keycloak with NestJS step by step. For the future tutorials, we are going to cover from the introduction of NestJS, from NestJS. Let me know in the comment section if you are happy with this tutorial. And if you need more tutorials about this, I can start to create them. I was focusing on the Spring framework for the previous year, but for now, this is for the JavaScript developers. Thank you guys. If you are new to this channel, may you kindly subscribe. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload new video. Salut coders.